It's time to get nerdy, y'all.
A little bit of gaming history for you.
Something relevant in gaming and discuss our opinions on it.
Should we kick it out of here, or should we kick-start it?
This is the part where you, the listeners, try to stump the hosts.
I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on a podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, lads and lasses of all ages, welcome to the show. It is Monday, March 17th, 2025, and it's time to get nerdy, everybody. Welcome to episode 335 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest gaming podcast in the multiverse. I am Maction, one of your hosts, and I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Nice Guy, also known as Mr. Lam Galuka. He's a stand-up comedian and a stand-up guy, and for the next hour, and he doesn't pay me to say that, FYI, and for the next hour, we are going to talk about topics as they relate to our favorite pastime, video gaming. Everything relating from news to history to trivia and everything in between. But first, Mr. Nice Guy, it's been a week since we've been able to be together. How you doing, Lam? Do anything exciting?
Nothing like crazy exciting. I got a bunch of laser tag in this weekend, which was super fun.
Nice.
Yeah, and there's two places I play laser tag. If either of them listen to our podcast, I like you both. You both serve a different niche. And I managed to go to both of them this weekend. Went to iCombat, where I have always struggled to be competitive, and I got a 2.11 KD Mac.
Ooh, that's pretty nice.
I got a bunch of kills and had a really, really good time. And the usual stuff happens. Soccer, both my boys were balling. They scored a couple goals. But other than that, laser tag this weekend was super good. Burned some calories. That was my weekend. How about you? What's new with you?
Oh, well, we just kind of did the usual thing. We taught our class at the local library, had a good, relaxing evening, and then, hey, Lam, any idea what, the average annual rainfall there, where you live now is?
Ooh, I have no idea. I would guess it's in the inches, or maybe
Sure.
the feet. I don't know.
Yeah, I do remember quite vividly what it was where we used to live. When we both lived in the same town.
Yeah.
It was six inches of rainfall for the year. That was the average.
Really?
Yeah. Now, every so often, we'll get days where we have, a couple of inches or whatever, but I believe we had 6 inches of rainfall over the night of Saturday night to Sunday.
Wow.
And that's a lot of water, folks. And so we wound up having a situation where we became an island.
What?
And so we were an island for basically all of Sunday. But also, because people, come around these parts because of where I live, that meant that we had other people who were stranded on our little island with us. So we actually had a, sort of emergency guest for the evening, which turned out, okay. We had power, so it's not like we were roughing it or anything, but we're not going to let somebody sleep in their car outside.
What?
So we had somebody sleep in the guest room, and then in the morning we found somebody else who had been out all night. We're like, hey, could you use a coffee? So so anyway, it was an interesting weekend, and it certainly had it's not the way I imagined Sunday/Monday morning to be going. And furthermore, we still had to wait a few hours into Monday. We were both late to work. We had to wait several hours before the area was dry enough that we could actually get across the water and get to work.
I mean, this is one of those stories where I have questions. You told the story this just happens and then people end up in your house.
Yeah.
How do you get to that point? Do you see them in their car and you say, hey, you can't sleep in your own vehicle? Or did they say, oh, I just wanted to let you know I'm going to sleep in your parking lot in my car, cry, sad face, and then you took pity on them? How did this conversation start?
So the first one, the person who actually stayed inside is somebody that we know because comes around pretty often.
Oh, you know him.
Yeah. We know them. They've never stayed at the house before. It's very much a sort of we see them around these parts. I don't want to get too much into it, but
Fair enough.
we know who they are, even though
I get it. Okay.
So anyway, it was just like, hey, I'm sorry that you're trapped and you can't go home. if you can't go home, you're staying in the guest bedroom. Capiche? And that's how the conversation went. And so, so he held out to like 8 p.m. And then when he was just like, yeah, it looks like it's really not happening for me. I'll send you some pictures because it's a biblical amount of water, Lom.
It sounds like it.
But, and then it wasn't until the next morning that we ran into the person who had, slept in the car out there. And, she seemed like she was not ready for that. So we were like, come on, get some coffee. And she was great. Sarah, if you're listening to this, which I know you're not, because that would be wild, but Sarah, you're pretty awesome.
So, I mean, you invited them in for coffee and didn't tell them you had a podcast because they should be listening.
No.
Like, I feel like a download, not that we don't get a lot of downloads, but I feel like the least they could do is be like, you gave me coffee, I'm going to listen to your next few episodes. I'm totally kidding, Mac. You're a good soul, and that is very, very kind of you that you allowed people to come into your home. And I'm glad that the podcast is still called Two Nerds in a Pod and not One Nerd in a Pod. Mac is still with us despite allowing strangers in his home.
I don't know what it is. I've had good luck with strangers.
Well, Mac, on that note, I have more questions, but we'll ask them later. I say we do what we do best and hop right up in that gaming news, man. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. Mr. Nice Guy, I'm out of the loop. What is new in video gaming?
So much. And welcome to episode 335 of Two Nerds in a Pod. All of you who are here live and those listening after the fact. Mac, first story is pretty straightforward and simple. We all like free stuff, right? I like to use the phrase baller on a budget, right?
Yeah.
Baller on a budget, for those who may be uninitiated, doesn't mean you're broke, doesn't mean you're poor, just means that you're wise with your money, right? It just means that you like to get a good deal, as we all do. And Mac, today, there's a great deal on Steam by Evan Campbell on GameSpot.com. As a special 24-hour promotion, developer Lucid 11 is offering Party Club for free on Steam, with the price rising to $16 afterward. For those who don't know, I already claimed this. I hope the rest of you will claim it as you listen to this within the next little bit. With the price going to $16 afterwards, there's also a special in-game outfit that players can unlock by checking out the co-op game on today's release. Party Club seems similar to the popular Overcooked series, as people work together to serve customers. In this game, however, the consumers are furry creatures and seating considerations must be addressed. For example, Lucid 11 states that putting a panda bear at the same table as a tiger could create serious issues. Mac, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I want to get your idea, your thought, your opinion. Because that's what we do here. We talk about the state of gaming and give our opinions and our expertise. The idea of releasing a free-to-play game, is it discounting the talent? Is it discounting the time put in when there is not a monetization strategy going forward? Or do you think that it can be wise in maintaining an audience by starting off free?
Well, Lom, I think there are a lot of games that do, that either start off free or are free their entire lives, for what that means for video games. But but there's no monetization strategy otherwise for this title?
I don't know that for a fact, but as far as I can see, I'm not seeing something. I mean, maybe they'll have costumes in the future. Maybe they'll have some type of other stuff. It's only free for a day, and then it goes to $16.
Obviously, we've seen a lot of free-to-play games, right? And most of those are supported by, microtransactions, whether that is for cosmetics or for other things. And there's enough of them out there that seem to be doing well that being nominally free up front is a tried and true at this point business model, something that does work. Something that starts free and then, gets additional. I think this has the benefit of being a inherently co-op game. So there is, of course, the hope that you'll get somebody in for free and then they'll want their friend to join. And so somebody's going to buy a copy as a result. So I think that it is probably a little bit harder of a sell to go free and then go paid, relying on that sort of bring your friends type of model when it's just a one-on-one type of, a 2-person at a time co-op. But like something like an MMO or something with a much bigger or broader install and collaborative base, I imagine it might work a little bit better. As for if it discounts the effort that went into it, I mean, I don't know. This I haven't heard of this studio before.
Lucid 11, me either.
Yeah, it strikes me as it's probably a small studio, and if a small studio, then everybody's probably on board with this sort of a thing. So I would hope that everybody involved in it is like, hey, this is a risk, this is something we want to try out, let's try it out together. But that's me reading a lot into it. I don't think I've got nearly as much information as I would like on this. But
Well, Mac, when you have a minute, at least go get a free copy of it, because it is available on Steam. Here are my thoughts, and the reason that I use that phrase "discount the talent" is because I actually had an experience in college where I was doing a lot more comedy in college at some points than I do now, just due to life complications and different things, but a lot of the comedy that I was doing as an unestablished comedian before I had a really good demo was free work. And so we would try to get shows and we'd say, hey, if we do this show, will you give us a portion of the drinks that are sold at the restaurant? Or will you allow us to charge a cover? In that case, it wasn't free. But occasionally we would just want to do a free show just to get our names out there. And so I had someone tell me once, you can do a show here, but don't discount your talent by charging $0. Charge something, because people are more likely to show up if they've paid $2, if they've paid $1, than if they just said, hey, yeah, you can walk in for free and watch this. And they may get up and leave in the middle because they paid nothing, right? And that's kind of how I see some of these games. I think that it would almost be better to charge $1, to charge 50 cents while this is going on during the Steam sale. Build up a community of people playing, because I get what they're trying to do, Mac. They're trying to say, if we don't get a community that plays this game, it dies, because it is co-op largely, right? So they're trying to get it out there, and then, like you said, people's friends will buy it. There will be some peer pressure, and maybe it goes viral, like in Among Us or like a Vampire Survivors, and people really want to get into it. So I get it, but I would have charged a little bit. I would have charged something to recoup some of the costs.
Yeah, I think that's a valuable insight, Lom, and I'm glad, not being somebody who's done much crowd work, and by done much, I mean absolutely no crowd work, I think that's perfectly reasonable, and you've won me over, my dude. I 100% agree with you. They should have charged something, get more buy-in in that way.
I am excited to play the game, I will say that.
Well, I'll add it to my account so that you and I can at least try it together.
If you're a Two Nerds listener and you're listening to this now, go get it. We'll post something in the Discord to make sure people know about this awesome deal. Okay, well, Mac, we talk about artificial intelligence, AI, quite a bit on this show. And sometimes we see eye to eye, sometimes we don't. We'll see how we feel about this one. This is on GameSpot.com. And Mac, I feel what separates this story from some of the others we've read is that it deals with a AAA title. Here is what is written by Cameron Koch. I believe that's how his name is pronounced. Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West actor Ashley Burch, who plays main character Aloy across Guerrilla Games' sci-fi franchise, is speaking up in the wake of a leaked video showing an AI-powered Aloy. As reported by The Verge, the since-removed video showed an internal tech demo in which Sony Entertainment's Director of Software Engineering, Sharwin, I cannot pronounce this last name, Ragobardajal, I hope I pronounced that right, held a conversation with an AI-powered Aloy. This person said in the video, the AI Aloy was a prototype designed alongside Guerrilla Games to demonstrate what could be possible with the technology. Birch took to TikTok over the weekend to say she had seen the leaked video and that Guerrilla Games had reached out to let her know that the AI tech demo did not use any of Birch's performance data, voice and motion capture, and was not a project that was in active development, but that didn't change the fact that Birch said the video made her worried, not about Guerrilla, Aloy, or her career specifically, but about game performance as a whole. And I've got to read this, Mac, because it's long, but we want to get her quote.
I actually have it because I have the quote. Can I read a couple of lines?
Yeah, please do. That'll break
Thanks,
it up.
dude. So real talk. I prepped 2 legalese.
Oh, dang.
And one of them was about this. So like I've got thoughts too. So and once again, listeners, we don't coordinate beforehand, so sometimes this happens, but it's even greater when it does because it means we got thoughts. All right, so, quote, we are currently on strike. SAG-AFTRA is on strike against video games because of AI, because this technology exists, because we know that game companies want to use it, and we're asking for protections. So currently, that's what we're fighting. What we're fighting for is that you have to get our consent before you make an AI version of us in any form. You have to compensate us fairly, and you have to tell us how you're using this AI double. And I feel worried not because the technology exists, not even because game companies want to use it, because of course they do. They always want to use technological advancements. I just imagine a video like this coming out that does have someone's performance attached to it, that does have someone's voice or face or movement, and the possibility that if we lose this fight, that person would have no recourse. They wouldn't have any protections, any way to fight back, and that possibility, it makes me so sad. It hurts my heart. It scares me. I love this industry and this art form so much, and I want there to be a new generation of actors. I want there to be so many incredible game performances. I want to be able to continue to do this job, and if we don't win, then that future is really compromised. And that's how she ends her. So I guess end quotation.
Yeah, so there's so much to talk about here. So let's spend a few minutes on this if you're okay with it, Mac.
Absolutely.
I will just give my opinion. First of all, I agree with her. Like I think Robert Downey Jr. was quoted as, he gave some comments on how he doesn't ever want his likeness to be used by AI.
Mm-hmm.
Once he's dead, he wants to be gone. And he has, I believe, set up protections legally so that if his likeness is ever used, even after he is dead, that whoever has done it will be sued. Probably pretty heftily based on who he is and the amount of resources and his estate size potentially. What I disagree with about her quote, Mac, and for some background, right after my undergrad, I started a master's in public administration. In fact, I had some classes with Mrs. the Mac. And one of the things that we discussed in one of the classes is that, a lot of laws are passed as the result of something happening. Little Susie gets hit by a car. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, there's new laws that are passed, or there's a traffic light now put up in that spot, because it sometimes takes unfortunate things for laws to be passed. What I don't like about her argument is that she's arguing based on hypotheticals. She's saying, I am worried about the potential for this AI power to be used for something that I don't agree with. Mm-hmm. And I agree with her. It does have that potential. But until people really start using it for that, you can't make that argument. And so that is what I have an issue with. I don't know if you'd agree or if you disagree, but that's my thought on that.
I agree that on the practical matter, that usually I think I've heard the exact quote from that professor that the nothing happens to little Susie.
Right.
And I think I agree that in a practical matter, rarely until the leopards start eating your face do you realize that you shouldn't have voted for the leopards eating faces party.
Right.
Rarely until it actually the chickens come home to roost do you realize that you should have built a chicken coop. Until the consequences come and make an impact in somebody's life, usually they just wave something away as, oh, well, that's just politics. That's what you say when something doesn't affect you and you don't want to think about it. And so I 100% agree that normally we don't get much done until there are people who are really damaged about things. And from a legal perspective, very often you need to show that you have been damaged before you can have your day in court, because that's all about trying to rectify the damages that have come. I very much want us to get ahead of the problems, especially if we can figuratively see the train slowly coming toward us on the tracks. I would love any amount of proactive effort, including the SAG-AFTRA strike, because I think from their perspective, they're very much just like, this is a slow-moving train. We're watching it coming down. We could do something to stop this now. And so I very much am like, I feel like what we do need is we need more people proactively involved in stopping the problems before the damage is done. Because the law is all good and fair to, your day in court is all good to hopefully recover some of the damages. It would be great if we had less people damaged.
Agree.
I'm very much with Ashley Birch on this, where I think, it's a hypothetical. But, we would have never thought that Disney would try to use the fact you had signed up for Disney Plus to try and get them off of the hook for a wrongful death lawsuit. And yeah, we shamed them out of doing it when it got national attention, but that didn't stop them from walking into a court and being like, hey, you can't sue us for the wrongful death of your spouse because you signed a we would only arbitrate thing. If we hadn't shamed Disney into dropping that nonsense, they could have maybe gotten that across the line. Who knows? But it is very much the case where I don't trust them not to use it in the worst way possible.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
So here's the other thing that I think we should spend like at least 2 minutes talking about.
Oh, sure.
She said something about her fear, and I can't find it because I found a different article than you, but effectively saying, what if people's likeness is used?
Yeah.
And I guess this is where individual contracts or more broad sweeping contracts would be useful, because we actually need to define what it means to use someone's likeness when it comes to the field of video games, right? We're not talking about LeBron James here. We're talking about relatively unknown outside the gaming community artists, and no disrespect to Ashley Birch, because I agree with where she's coming from, but I will say that Ashley Birch is not Aloy. She is not the character that she plays. Now, if they are using her voice, yes. Are you going to ask about motion cap? Is that what you're
Is a part of it, because we know that.
Yeah.
Well, please.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say, is we need something that defines what it is, because if someone wants to argue that you put dots all over my face and you in somewhat used motion capture to create this character, then yeah, to a certain extent it's your likeness. But if an artist created the character and you are the voice, then at what point does it really become your likeness? It's a very complicated issue. And that's why I think that rather than be worried about AI, we define what it means to use someone's likeness and what someone's likeness is in respect to video games.
So I was actually going to say, I thought you were going a different way on this, and I will just put in a thing to say that it's all well and good for the personality rights, is what it's called, generally for us to use like Robert Downey Jr.'s face. And it's all fine and good because Robert Downey Jr.'s estate is obviously going to pursue people doggedly for using his stuff. Ashley Birch's estate, who knows? But also, it is one of those things where I think you're right, and I feel like we're both agreeing that the proactive side of making sure that these things are laid out, because we don't want the people to have their stuff used without their say-so. And also, unfortunately, somebody who is, say, small potatoes, like let's say I get that, that voice acting gig off of the ground. Never gonna happen. Been in the world that did happen.
Sure.
I would have significantly less bargaining power than someone like Ashley Birch or Laura Bailey. These people who've played such big characters. I would have way less ability to demand that these things be spelled out in my contracts. Now, if it's the SAG-AFTRA strike that ensures that this is a standard rider in all the contracts, then we're all better off, because even if I've got no power, but Ashley Birch and Laura Bailey have that power, they can help me. So I very much am like, I hope that this is one of those things that gets solved in this thing.
No, finish your thought, please. Go ahead, finish your thought.
Oh, well, I was just going to say that at the same time, I feel like, can you imagine, the timing of this is especially bad because, like Ashley Birch points out, hey, this leaked tech demo, and maybe it is just a tech demo and nothing's ever going to be used, but it comes out as SAG-AFTRA's on strike, and we're saying, hey, we don't want you to do X, Y, and Z without our permission, and something happens that looks a whole lot like this without our permission. Looks like maybe you leaked this bad boy so that you could tell us to fall in line.
Yeah.
If you wanted to read that negatively.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And here's the last point I make, and then if you have a counterpoint, I'd love to hear it. That is why this is not about AI. It is more about permissions, and it is more about defining what is and is not allowed. The ability to use someone's likeness or someone's performance and pervert it is not limited to AI. Individuals at a company who are programmers or artists or creators or developers could easily copy and paste somebody's voice, somebody's motion, somebody's likeness, and use it without their permission. And it wouldn't need to be AI in order to do that. And so to me, the argument goes more back to protecting your rights via contract than it does about attacking artificial intelligence and its potential to, yes, much more easily than a programmer could do by hand over hours and hours and hours, pervert your work, but could still be done without AI.
Sure, but por qué no los dos? Por qué no los dos?
Fair enough. Hey, for the sake of time, that's been our news for the week.
All right, well, now we turn to some video game history, some of the cool things that have happened in years before. Mr. Nice Guy, let me ask you, did you ever play the 2004 game Ninja Gaiden for the original Xbox?
No, I thought you were going to say for the NES, but I have played that Ninja Gaiden for NES.
So, Ninja Gaiden 2004, fantastic game. Oh, quick side note, EverQuest for the PC came out in 1999, but, you know, that's not the big star of this show. It's all about Ninja Gaiden. Okay, so
Nice.
we've probably all heard of people getting so mad that they broke controllers. This was the first video game that I ever saw somebody break a controller before. Nice Guy, have you ever seen anybody break a controller or done it yourself?
Yeah, I think when I was a kid, I probably broke a controller. Like, my brother and I had some very intense battles of Street Fighter 2 Turbo,
Yeah.
and also some very intense battles of NBA 2K on PlayStation 2.
I don't know what it was. Ninja Gaiden is a single-player experience, so it wasn't that sort of you against me rage, that sibling rage that I know, like, wells up, but it was purely this anger and frustration with the difficulty of the game. I watched somebody snap a joystick off of the Xbox.
Wow.
And then after that snapped, just spiked it into the wall. But the important thing is that he broke the joystick off of the controller after he got that "you died," just like snapped it off, and then the rest of it came. So, like, you know, it was legit. After that, we like called it a day and went outside because of course. But yeah, that's one of my big memories about Ninja Gaiden is that moment. But for some more history and background about the game, they started working on it in 1999, and the Ninja Gaiden team was doing it for the Dreamcast, the Sega Dreamcast. But as we all know, the Sega Dreamcast, you know, it went the way of the dodo in the early 2000s, long before the game was ready to be released. And because of that whole change, it's early internet, and the team puts out an online poll and says, hey, where do you want to play the new Ninja Gaiden game? And the public was like, hey, we want to play it on the Nintendo GameCube. Fairly overwhelming support for the Nintendo GameCube. Like, you know, 3/4 of the people were like, hey, we want to play this on GameCube, Team Ninja. However, they had in their hands, Team Ninja had a software development kit, an SDK, for the original Xbox that they thought was really impressive, more impressive than what the GameCube could do. And so, in spite of the overwhelming preference for that GameCube release, they decided to go with Xbox. But later on, the saga's not over. It's never over. Later on, they release a couple of free sets of DLC that they called Hurricane Packs that they released via Xbox Live. Keep in mind, of course, we take it for granted that you'll get DLC or patches or things like that, but that really wasn't the case. Back in the, you know, late 90s, early 2000s, what you put out was very often the form that the game was going to stay with for basically ever. But thanks to Xbox Live, they were able to release these Hurricane Packs. And while I still stand by my hot take that the greatest video game competition ever was held back in the 80s with the, with the Sword Quest series of games, I will go to my grave on that. Lom, I see you giving me that face. You mean to tell me that a gem-studded sword, a chalice, a jade and ivory box as prizes for solving the mysteries isn't the greatest video game competition ever?
I mean, I've seen The Wizard, right? So, I don't know.
The Wizard I mean, what was? I mean, what did he get?
That was a dope video game competition.
yeah, but
He got to be one of the first people to play Mario 3.
Shout out to TJ Thrilla. He knows what's up. It is all about those prizes from Sword Quest. I'm putting words in his mouth, clearly. But
What up, TJ?
point being is that I think it was the greatest video game competition because it had the greatest prizes. However, the event that they had, the Master Ninja tournaments that they had for Ninja Gaiden for the Xbox, are pretty high up there. They had 3 worldwide high score events, these Master Ninja tournaments, that because of Xbox Live, they could send that sort of data to your Xbox. You could play, get that high score, and they could collate the data on their side. This is kind of early online tournament type stuff that wasn't more like LANs, but like more worldwide.
Sure.
Showed up as an option in the middle of the game, and people were invited to play in. And then, the people who ranked the highest, while there was some controversy about the competition, they were eventually invited to participate at the Tokyo Game Show in, I believe, 2000 and 2005. As a result. And so we had, several runners-up from across the world and one grand champion who I believe got like a katana as well as a plaque from their, for being the best in the world at Ninja Gaiden. And yeah, pretty sweet, honestly. Pretty sweet competition. Not the greatest ever, but still good. Anyway, that's what I had for us for video game history for today.
That was dope, man. That was a cool story. Even though I disagree about it being the greatest game competition, I have to admit, a gem-studded sword, pretty awesome. Pretty awesome prize. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is time for our next segment, the Topic of the Week, a segment where we discuss something relevant in gaming and give our opinions on it. And Mac, this week we have something unique to talk about. Because it is the Steam sale, and it's going to be going on until Thursday the 20th, the Steam Spring Sale 2025. And I had an idea. I talked earlier about how we like to use that phrase, baller on a budget. We all love good deals. If you're in the Discord, you saw that I posted a deal the other day about Curse to Golf. It was $2 on sale right before the Spring Steam sale. It's a tongue twister. And so I said, you know what, Mac? We should come up with a baller on a budget list of games that one could pick up if they had $25 to spend on the Spring Steam Sale 2025, what games they would buy. So we both put together a list. And Mac, we didn't come up with any criteria. It was pretty wide open. You could pick 25 $1 games. You could pick all games from your favorite developer. You could do whatever you wanted. We didn't even talk about if it was after tax or before tax. We left it really broad. And so, Mac, how do we want to do this? Do we want to go back and forth, or do we want to just have one of us read and then the other one go? What do you think?
If you'll allow, I'd love to go first, read my whole list, and then turn it over to you.
Please do. And if you don't mind, as you're reading your list, maybe give us what was your thought process in putting the list together, and maybe give a brief description of the games, if that's cool.
Absolutely. Okay, so for starters, my general MO here was these were games that brought me joy to see on the list, and I took some of those. Some of them I had played before, some of them I had not, and were games that I wanted to play, and still others were games that I had never played before. I wasn't entirely sure if I had wanted, but I know that I had seen it in a lot of people's libraries, and I've seen it played frequently. So there's got to be something there. So I'll start with probably one that that should be a pretty easy sell for most people. Tabletop Simulator for $9.99.
Nice.
It's a big chunk of the $25 budget, but I've had some great use out of it. I think I've logged something like 40 hours into Tabletop Simulator. And just being able to play card games with friends over the internet, to have that tabletop simulated and be able to play, Heroscape or being able to play Heroscape or a game like that is a lot of fun. because it's not just limited to card games. It's got a lot more options. We even for a bit played Dungeons and Dragons with Tabletop Simulator, and it wound up being a fantastic time.
What was that zombie game we played with Ishmobile on tabletop?
Zombicide.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, I've played that IRL, and it's a good game. And of course, we got to play that together. It was a good time. So $10, definitely worth it. Very collaborative. And then, if you've already got Tabletop Simulator, then congratulations. But a few others. There's one called Spiritfarer. Which is a fantastic game. It's one of those cozy type games where you are ferrying spirits. You get to upgrade your boat. It's a cozy game. What more to say? But it's been on my list for a long time.
Is that one you've played?
It is not, but it's been on my list to play.
Got it.
I did add it to the Steam. Now, this next one I also haven't played, but I know people are crazy about it, and so I think it's fair to say Undertale for 99 cents.
And Mac, I'm so sorry. Did you say how much Spiritfarer cost?
I didn't. $2.69.
Okay.
Thanks. I'll keep that. So Undertale for 99 cents. This next one's a tower defense game. Bloons TD5. As with any tower defense game, you usually have a situation where you're building your towers to defend a vital area. They're shooting down the enemies as they come in, often on a predetermined path. Sometimes they switch it up a little bit. But $2.79 for Bloons TD Tower Defense 5. I have, and maybe it's just the crowd I run with, but there are multiple people in my friends on Steam for whom I see this game as being played by them multiple times in a month, just randomly, so and so, and it's different people. So I feel like there's got to be something there to it. And $2.79, easy pick. Chrono Trigger for $3.74. Chrono Trigger is an incredible game. It's fantastic. Originally Super Nintendo title. It is a RPG, 80 hours, multiple characters, multiple endings, lots of really cool things to say about Chrono Trigger. And that's $3.74. Last but most certainly not least, on my $25 budget here is Journey for $4.94. Added that to my to my library as well because I've always wanted to, and this seemed to be the perfect chance.
Nice.
But Mr. Nice Guy, if I had $5 extra, I would have picked up Portal 2 for $1.99 and Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon for $3.74. Okay.
Nice.
I
like
cheated.
it, dude. I like it. That is cheating. Do you know what the total was for your list?
Yeah, $25.31. So I did go just slightly over.
Yeah, Mac did not follow the rules, but that's okay.
I didn't.
I totally get it. Well, cool. So I have a list, and this is so different. Like, there's no games that really overlap.
Oh, yeah. It's so different because, for starters, he followed the rules and actually kept to the budget.
That's right. Here's the thing. I didn't want to necessarily come up with a list of games that could result in, like, infinite gameplay, but I wanted to come up with some really, really good curated experiences that if I had a friend who maybe had just bought a Steam Deck, or who was like, you know what, I'm just getting into Steam. Like, what are some games that I should really play? I'm kind of new to gaming, and I want a mix of things across genres with different types of experiences. So this is a list I came up with. Now, we'll start with a really, really inexpensive game that we reviewed on the show. And I believe at the time we reviewed it on the show, it was probably on sale. We got it free. I think it's like $9.99, but it's like on sale for $3 a lot. This one is on sale right now for $1.50, and it's from one of our favorite developers. It's Prodigal, which is such a phenomenal game. Imagine Prodigal for $1.50, Mac. That's what it's at right now.
Buy it now.
Please, like, there's absolutely no reason to not buy it. It's effectively a Link's Awakening style game with romance options, side quests, and a really great main story, and also really, really good combat. I don't know if I'm doing it justice, but the amount of content and the amount of hours you can put into this game at full price makes it absolutely worth $1.50. There's a lot of really good dialogue. The story is solid. This is a developer that I feel is always Colorgrave, that is always underappreciated and has put out a lot of really good games, 3 really good games that we really enjoy. So check out Prodigal for $1.50. Mac, the second game is one of my favorite games of all time. I'm a big RPG guy, and I'm a big Fallout guy. And so there's always kind of like this crowd that says Fallout New Vegas is the best Fallout of all time, and that's great. But the Fallout game that really got me into Fallout was Fallout 3. And so you can currently pick up Fallout 3 Game of the Year Edition for just $6.59 on Steam. And that is dozens and dozens and dozens. You could probably say a couple hundred hours even if you really put a lot of time into it. Go visit the Wasteland on your Steam Deck, get some gear, kill some ghouls, and have a good time. Fallout 3 Game of the Year. All the DLC included. Next game, Mac. Wanted to move away from the RPG and the indie scene, although this is also an indie, but it's a punishingly difficult platformer with a very, very charming story. And it's one of the best games of all time in terms of indies, and that game is...
Is it The Messenger?
It is not The Messenger.
Oh.
Although I do enjoy The Messenger, it is Celeste. For $4.99, you can pick up Celeste, play the A sides, play the B sides, play the C sides, collect those strawberries, take Madeline to the top of Celeste Mountain, and then download some mods and play some more Celeste, because it's such a wonderful game. Mac, I told you that part of the rules or desire with my list was to create diverse experiences. And so for $4.99, players can get one of the best point-and-click story-based games of all time in its entirety. For $4.99, you could pick up The Walking Dead from Telltale, the definitive series. And so I put that on my list as well. So we're 4 games in. We have an indie side-scrolling top-down. We have a RPG. We have a platformer. And we have a point-and-click. And then, Mac, there might be a gamer who wants some multiplayer on their list. And so I went with the vanilla version of this next game because I wanted to get the cheaper version for this list. So for $3.99, if you're a multiplayer shooter type of person, you can currently pick up Rainbow Six Siege. One of the most continually upgraded multiplayer shooters with a competitive scene that you can currently get. Now, I heard the community's toxic. I own this game, and I've experienced it a little bit. But if you want to strategize, if you want to get your multiplayer on Rainbow Six Siege, $4, $3.99 on the Steam sale. Did you have a comment, Mac? I know you look like you wanted to say something.
Nope, all good, man. I'm just thrilled by your choices.
Yeah, trying to get a bunch of different types of games on here. And then the last one, because we had a few dollars left. I wanted to get a puzzle game that players could experience, something with a good sense of humor, but also with some co-op, something to make you think, but also enjoy the story. And so for $1.99, my last game is Portal 2. And that's enough said. Like, that's potentially a top 10 game of all time.
Yeah.
All in, you're at $24.05 with that list. Depending on where you live, potentially with tax, you're still under $25.
Lum, I appreciate you going under budget so that I could go over budget a few cents.
It evens out. Out. Now, if you're one of our Discord friends, maybe go in the Discord, tell us whose list was better.
Mine.
That, not even close. That has been our topic of the week.
Well, now we turn to a crowdfunding project that is trying to get off the ground. We call this Kick or Kick Start. This is going to be a quick one. But what I've got for you in the chat, friends, is a Kickstarter project. This is called Supercade, a visual history of the video game age from 1971 to 1984. This is basically, it's a coffee table book. It's all about the early days of video gaming. And this is not the first time that this has come out. Supercade was originally published several years back by MIT Press, and I'll just read a quote from Van Burnham. He's the guy who's running this Kickstarter. As proud as I am of the original Supercade, it was admittedly imperfect. The schedule set by the publisher was much too short, causing a time crunch at deadline that forced production compromises, and some of the images suffered. There was only one editor proofing the text, whereas the second volume had 3. So some gaffes and typos slipped through. I was also not permitted to go on press, and there were some serious printing errors, including an entire missing page. It haunts me still. He also talks about how the original publishing didn't really have the budget. Well, a little while ago, Van Burnham did a Kickstarter for the follow-up to this book, and he himself retained the rights to the original publication, and so he is doing a Kickstarter in order to do a reprinting of this first one, this one that and it's not just a reprinting, but a revised edition as well. So you can, if you want, you can get a hand. So this is one of those things where, you know me, Mr. Nice Guy, I'm big about a playable demo or such like this.
Sure.
I don't have access to his second published volume on Supercade, but I can borrow from the library or buy a copy of the original and have a good idea of what to expect from the revised edition. You know, all the pages there. But also, he says that there's about 100 more pages of content for this new edition. So anyway, that's just the sort of overview. Like I said, covering 71 to 84, a lot of arcade games and things as well like the color TV games. So there will be not just arcades, but also home consoles as well considered in that. If you wanted to get in on a copy, the soft cover version would run you $35 plus, whatever it would be for shipping, only to the United States. A hardcover edition for $65 for a book that is going to be 500 pages. So it'll be about 10 inches square. So 10 inches by 10 inches. So a pretty solid size. Get yourself a conventional sheet of paper and fold just a little bit off, and then that's it in both dimensions, in case you're having trouble visualizing. But anyway, so there are, of course, other things, like there's always a deluxe special edition and whatever. But if you're interested in a softcover coffee book about arcades and early video game history, $35, hardcover $65. The goal that he's looking for overall to bring this to life was 34,000. It's got 14 days left to go, and it's already it's getting close to double that. Not quite double, but it's getting close there. It's supposed to be printed and deliver these in September of 2026. So it's gonna be about 18 months or so before you get a copy of it. So, Anyway, Mr. Nice Guy, any thoughts?
You know what? It's hard for me to ever say no to a book.
Same.
Not the era that I'm the biggest fan of, right? Because this is before I was born. But I respect the retro, and I feel like this is almost a preservation of history in some ways. A while back, we reviewed a book on the podcast, and it's actually, what was that book? Retro, I can't remember the name, but it was really, really good.
Yeah.
And it's actually still on my nightstand upstairs because I was just looking through it the other day. And these are the types of things where, are you going to read a book every day or the same book every day? No, you're not. But knowing that you have it, it's a conversation starter. And every once in a while, if it's a history thing, you'll turn back and say, you know what, I want to remember what was said about these early Game Boy games or these early arcade games. So it's great to have.
Mr. Kent's books on video game history I've got both volumes on my shelf, and I go back looking through them every so often when I'm prepping for the show. It's been invaluable sometimes to have these print editions on history, and a picture, a visual. Yeah.
Fantastic writer, Stephen Kent. Well, cool. So, my vote for this is to kickstart. I think this is great. And there's really no debate. 500 pages is awesome.
Well, what do you think on the price? Is $35 for a soft cover, $65 for a hard cover? Is that enough for 500 pages?
I think that's cheap for 500 pages.
Agreed.
I was just reading the other day my Invincible compendium. It's 1,000 pages, and I think I paid 30 something, but that's a few years after it came out. So, the amount of content and probably the research that went into this. At launch, $35, very reasonable.
I agree. I think we settled it. Kick or kickstart? The answer is definitely kick. Obviously, we wish everybody the best. But Van, good luck with this, my dude.
Fantastic. And Mac, it's time for our next segment, a segment called Nerdflex.
A woo.
A segment where you, the viewers, try to stump the host. Sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. Mac, if you're here live, as people know, you put a multiple choice gaming related question in the chat. Mac and I use nothing but our noggins to try to answer that question. No phone a friend, no Googling, none of that. And we try to answer these questions. Now, we also have a test bank here that I'm pulling up right now. But Mac, tell the people while I'm pulling this up, I know we had been doing sound tests for a while. Are we going to bring those back eventually, or are those fully retired?
I am so glad that you asked, Mr. Nice Guy, because this is a sound test episode, my dude. They're not fully retired. We are doing it just a little bit differently, though, because as we rotate in a new sound test, we will rotate out the old one. So, Mr. Nice Guy, we have to say sayonara. We have to give a send-off to a previous sound test. So, that means that the sound test from episode 295, we're going to give the solution today and share that with the people and before we send it off. But, Mr. Nice Guy, I already know what it is, but I want to give you a chance, last chance to guess on 295.
Ooh.
If you want to hit play.
Okay. Definitely something retro. Sounds like ghosts laughing almost. And I initially thought of like a Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man.
But that sound quality is too high.
Oh, you know what though? You know what? Wait a minute. It's something from Super Mario. Tell me, am I right that it's Super Mario 64?
You're wrong. It's not Super Mario 64.
It's not?
Yeah, I'll give you this. It's a Zelda game.
A Zelda game. So I was right with Nintendo.
And it is a retro game because it does fall into the retro category now, but it certainly wouldn't have when we started making our show.
Okay, so it's a recent retro. It almost makes me think of like rats that you're killing in Zelda or something on the ground. I honestly don't know, man.
This one is from Twilight Princess. So it's a Wii game, but this is Midna, your companion in Twilight Princess. This is her laugh that she says that she gives a bunch of the time.
Interesting, very annoying.
Yeah, especially on repeat like that.
Well, now we know.
Now we know, and we can say goodbye to that one. The mystery is solved for Mystery Sound 295, and so now. Time for a new one, which you can listen to and let us know if you've got a guess. And if you're the first one to guess it right, we will give you a prize. Handcrafted by me, sent to your door.
I like it. So, Mac, on that note, I say we do the sound test, or not the sound test, do the questions. What do you think from the test bank?
Yeah, absolutely. What do we got?
So here is the first question. We pick randomly. There's a button here that lets you pick random. There's thousands of questions in here. This one is a Sega question. Who was the 32-bit generation Sega advertising mascot? Who was the 32-bit generation Sega advertising mascot? It seems too easy.
Well, I mean,
Not
I would
16-bit.
say, yeah, 16-bit would be, we'd be talking.
Sonic.
I don't think I know who is the Sega mascot for the 32-bit, because that's like Dreamcast, right?
I'd imagine so, or Sega CD or something.
Oh,
Probably
yeah,
Dreamcast.
Sega CD. Huh? Maybe Dreamcast. Yeah, I don't know who. Do you know?
I don't. I'm assuming it's some type of animal, and I'm just trying to think back to early Sega games. Like Bonk was TurboGrafx. I don't know. There was like a squirrel game. I'm trying to remember if that was Sega, not Conquer. But I feel like there was another squirrel game that was on Sega, and it's on the tip of my tongue right now. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I am at a complete loss. I am totally stumped.
Okay, well, let's just. I'm gonna guess and say Vector Man. I think there was a Vector Man on early Sega games or Sega consoles, and we'll flip over and see. Okay, I'm gonna have to Google this because I have never heard of this. Sagata Sanshiro was the
Yep.
mascot. Segata
Never.
Sanshiro. Never heard of it. Don't know what it means, but that's okay. Okay, Square Enix. In what game series could you find Blood Money, Contracts, and Silent Assassin? In what game series could you find Blood Money, Contracts, and Silent Assassin? Square Enix question. I think I know the answer, but I'm debating if it's Square Enix or not. But I think I know the answer.
Blood Money, Contracts. It sounds like those are titles rather than like the concept of contracts, because like otherwise it'd be like, well, Blood Money, I mean, technically anytime you go hitmanning, it's for blood money,
Dude.
I mean, maybe Hitman.
Yeah, you just said it. I think that's what it is, actually. And I was just reading some stuff about Splinter Cell today, and I was thinking, you know what? I should play the Hitmans I haven't played to scratch that itch. But I seem to remember Hitman, whichever one was on the 360. That was the one that I played. And I seem to remember being able to get these things. So I'm going to go with Hitman.
Well, I'll hedge a bet and I'll say Splinter Cell just to.
Well, no, because we know Splinter Cell's Ubisoft.
Oh, that's right. What's a Square Enix thing? Like
Kingdom
Final
Hearts.
Fantasy. I'll just.
There you go. Yeah, Final Fantasy. That's fine. Yeah. All right, let's see what the answer is. It was indeed Hitman. That one was pretty
Nice, Lom. Way to carry us, dude.
Well, you said it before I even said it.
Well,
so
I
good
said
job.
it, but I didn't say like the Hitman series. I was just like a Hitman. I was talking about the concept of a Hitman. It completely escaped my mind that it was a Square Enix property. So, like, I wouldn't have
Totally
gotten
get
there
it.
without you.
Totally get it. Well, Mac, here's a JRPG question, and this one is timely because you had Chrono Trigger on your list for Steam games. So here's the question. What is the PlayStation sequel to Chrono Trigger called?
Chrono Cross.
Okay, I'm going to go with that. You said it with such confidence. Chrono Cross. Boom, Chrono Cross. Does that make us 3 for 3 today?
No, that makes us 2 for 3 because
What
we
was
had
the one
no
we
idea.
missed? Oh, yeah, we didn't know the first one. That's right.
Yeah, the first one.
Sagata
no idea.
Senshiro. Well, that's okay. We learned something new, and that has been
Yeah.
Netflix.
All right. Now, Lom,
What's up, man?
normally we would turn to a little bit of legalese.
Legalese.
However, I feel like we covered a lot of the ground in our conversation about AI Alloy and even talked a little bit about the personality rights. Now, I do also have a backup legalese prepared, but we are also already past the 1 hour mark already. I think I'd be totally comfortable calling it there as we had a combined news and legalese at the front of the show.
That's cool, man. Let's go on to what should we talk about before we wrap then, Mac? What do you think?
I say let's talk about what have we been watching and what have we been playing, Mr. Nice Guy, the cool nerdy things that we're into. It's time
Let's
to share.
do it. Let's do it. And Mac, I want to hear from you first, man. What have you been watching and playing lately?
Okay, so I finished Halo Infinite, the campaign, with a friend of mine. We've been playing it on the weekends. Another great reason why I was so thrilled that the power stayed on in spite of becoming an island. But yeah, so finished off Halo Infinite, and we started It Takes Two.
Nice. What a game.
Yeah,
Did you pick it up in the Steam sale?
I did pick it up in the Steam sale, and pretty excited about it. But also, I've got my Steam Deck here, and I've got 2 controllers, so I'm looking forward to playing it with the extra external controllers via my Steam Deck here with my spouse. So
That is awesome.
yeah, I'm excited for that too. So I've been playing that mostly. Has what I've been playing. As for watching, gosh, I watched The River Wild. Watching that one with a friend, and I'll tell you what: if Meryl Streep and Kevin Bacon didn't deliver fantastic performances in that, and also it's recorded, it was filmed on some of the rivers not too far from where I live. So pretty cool.
Nice. Very cool.
How about you?
Well, Mac, I've been doing a lot of retro stuff. I mean, I got my Analog Pocket right here. I have been playing a game that I picked up at Midwest Gaming Classic last year, Batman, which is a really, really good, you can't see it, it's all blurry, but it's a really, really good old Game Boy game made by Sunsoft. It has almost like some Mario Land style design. And Batman has a gun, which in canon he doesn't kill, but in this game he does kill. So anyway, been having fun with that. I haven't had as much time for gaming as I would like. So doing like a few indie things on the Steam Deck and trying to find what I should buy on the Steam sale. I spend more time browsing the Steam store than I playing games, Mac, to be honest with you.
That's just a testament to how much there is out there on sale.
There's so much good stuff. I got to pick up a game or two. I might pick up, we'll talk about it next week. As far as watching Fear the Walking Dead, I've been into that show. And I'm excited to get through season 2. And then a little bit of stand-up comedy on the internets. Mac, that is it. Would you take us home, sir?
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for coming out to episode 335, helping us make it what it was. We would appreciate it if you joined us Mondays on twitch.tv/2nerdsinapod. That's with the number 2 at the front there. At approximately 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Central. Stump us with your cool, nerdy questions. Wow us with your cool, nerdy insights. Share with us your cool, nerdy things you're into. But until we see you next week, remember to be excellent to each other and keep it nerdy.
Deuces. See ya.
Bye.